Hello viewers, welcome to our program on Immigration and You. I am your immigration attorney Michael Fulwani, and once again we have with us attorney David Nachman. David, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Today's program we're going to start with the cutoff dates for the month of March 2013, and then we're going to be talking about our recent trip to India and our meetings with the various American consular officials in India. So here are the cutoff dates for the month of March 2013. The family first preference, which is for the unmarried sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, advances by 4 weeks to February 15, 2006. The family 2A category, which is for the spouse and children under the age of 21 of green card holders, also advances by 4 weeks to November 22, 2010. The family 2B category, which are the unmarried sons and daughters of permanent residents who are over the age of 21, advances by 6 weeks to March 1, 2005. And the family third preference, which are the married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, advance only by 1 week to July 15, 2002. And the family fourth preference, which are the brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens, also advances only 1 week to April 22, 2001. In the employment preference categories, the first preference priority workers are current for all the countries. The employment second preference, the advanced degree holders, are current for most of the countries except India. Unfortunately, once again, no movement for India for the employment second preference, and the date remains the same, September 1, 2004. The employment third preference, which are the professionals and skilled workers for most of the countries except India, advanced by 6 weeks to May 1, 2007. Unfortunately for India, again only moves for 1 week to November 22, 2002. Same thing for the EW other workers category, they advance other countries to 6 weeks to May 1, 2007, and India only 1 week, November 22, 2002. Also, the fourth and the fifth preference categories, the fourth is for the religious workers, priests and all that, and the fifth is for the investors of $500,000 or $1 million. Both these categories remain current. Now, with this, if you want to make any comments, and then you can start talking about our trip to India. We just came back from India, both of us, in one piece. It was really a very speedy trip. And we started with New Delhi, the American Embassy, then we went to Hyderabad, then we went to Chennai, when we went to the American Consulate in Mumbai in the end. We have a lot of interesting and good meetings, and David will give you some information. I'll add on to that. Just one thing that I want to mention before David say that, basically there are sometimes some variances between one post and another post, but by and large, we are going to be discussing about what are all the things on the same page. Most of the things on the same page. We figured out, we talked to each consul, and we figured out that most of the posts, all the posts almost in India, are following the similar policies. With that, I'm asking David to give you some more detailed information about our meetings with the American Embassy in New Delhi and the consuls in India.
Well, actually, before we discuss that, Michael, I just want to comment a little bit on the visa preference numbers for March,
Sure.
Which you asked me to do.
Yes.
First of all, I just recently, I believe it was this morning. All of my days seem to be blurring together now, but this morning I was reading an interview with Charles Oppenheimer, who is the individual who is responsible at the U.S. Department of State for allocating numbers on this visa chart for the priority dates. And specifically, there was discussion about India and the second preference classification in the employment area. And there was a question as to whether or not he saw the possibility of those dates advancing. And unfortunately, at this point in time, he's reporting that he does not see the possibility of either the family of the second preference category, the employment-based second preference category, or the employment-based third preference category advancing at all. And one of the reasons
at all, when you say at all, when you are talking about until September of 2000?
That's correct.
The whole
That's correct.
fiscal
He's-
year?
That's right.
My
So he's-
God, that's terrible.
That is terrible. And one of the reasons that he gave for why he doesn't see the possibility of it advancing significantly is that he said that what's happening is that so many Indian nationals Indian citizens applied to recapture in other words, what they did is that they had an an employment-based third preference case, and they filed in the employment-based second preference. And so what they did is they recaptured those earlier priority dates. And as a result of taking those earlier priority dates, what ends up happening is that those visa numbers resorb very quickly. So they weren't able, unfortunately, to be able to say that there are going to be more visas available. So those numbers are being taken out of the allocation for India.
Does that mean it is all our fault? You and me have been telling them, move from third to second preference, and that's what they have followed.
Well, that's exactly what they've been doing. So I guess now the advice becomes, if you have the possibility of being able to move to the first preference category, now is a good time to give it a shot. You know, the Kazarian case, which is the governing law in the employment-based first preference category, does have some pretty good objective parameters that we're able to help our clients with. So look very seriously at the employment first preference if you feel that you have a shot at it.
Until now, we have been telling them try to move from third to second, but we see the second is frozen almost.
That's correct.
So it's a good idea. But I mean, some cases, not all. It may also be possible to move from even EB third preference to the first preference if a person meets the qualifications requirements. So not necessarily it is moving from second to the first. In some cases, it is maybe possible.
It's a possibility, and I think that, Michael, you would agree with me that really what it comes down to is ensuring that you talk to a qualified legal representative, a qualified immigration representative who can look over all of your credentials, even if if you have an EB3 case, look over the credentials and make a reasoned determination as to whether or not you could in fact qualify for the EB1 classification, because of course the benefits of going to an EB1 from an EB3 are tremendous. You're talking about a tremendous savings of time.
And we have always said that it's always a good idea to look at other options.
Cross-chargeability is
cross-chargeability is
right.
one of them, and
right.
Possibly if CIR gets passed,
That's right.
and then the big whole picture will change.
That's
the
right.
per country limit is removed,
Right.
and there's an increase in the quota of maybe 300% or whatever they were saying.
Right.
That will bring these dates, if not current, much closer.
Well, we've talked about this on prior programs
Exactly.
For ITV, and we've talked about the possibility of, remember in the provision in the STEM Act, where what they had is that they were going to eliminate the diversity lottery, and they were going to dump all those other visas into, the other employment-based classifications.
So once we, this is the most important thing, is to give them the report of the consular meetings in India.
Yes, of course.
And
We want to
once-
move on
maybe
to
a couple
that,
of
yeah.
programs will do that, and then we are watching very closely what is happening in the Congress. Any time that we see an important news, we will immediately bring that to attention of
to our viewers, of course. And actually, what we'll do, I hope, is either in today's program, briefly talk a little bit about comprehensive immigration reform, which is obviously on the front page of just about every newspaper, both cultural papers and non-cultural papers. Most important thing that I want to say right now about comprehensive immigration reform is that while they're talking about it, it's not there. So don't fall prey to someone who's telling you that there's a new law that you can take advantage of. There are a few new programs that are available, and we are talking to clients about provisional waivers and about stateside processing of waivers and about certain changes, but comprehensive immigration reform is not one of them that's in place right now.
Inshallah, it will pass.
From your mouth to God's ears,
Okay.
right?
Let's talk about
So let's
our
talk about our
trip.
trip. So I think that probably most importantly, as Michael mentioned, we went to several consulate offices. We went to the U.S. consulate office. We started out in New Delhi. First, we had a press conference and a meeting for the Indo-American Society in Mumbai, which was a terrific opportunity to be able to discuss with them as word was emerging from the United States about comprehensive immigration reform, what we saw those laws being. So that was an excellent opportunity. We then flew to New Delhi and we met with the U.S. consular officers in New Delhi, the chief
At the
of
American
the
Embassy in New Delhi.
in the American Embassy. We met with the chiefs of the immigrant and non-immigrant visa sections, and we had an opportunity to discuss a bunch of issues, but probably one of the most interesting issues which we raised and discussed with them, and we discussed with all of the consular offices in India, in Chennai, in New Delhi, in Mumbai, in Hyderabad, were administrative processing. Everybody wants to know about administrative processing.
I just want to mention that whenever we go to India and meet the consular officers, they welcome us. They are very happy to meet us because it's a two-way street, right? We explain to them from our viewers, we get questions, we get problems with the consular processing, and we pick up the ones that are appropriate discussing, and they appreciate bringing those problems to their attention.
That's right.
At the same time, they explain us about like 221G administrative processing, why they keep pending, why they deny 214B cases, and they have their some reasons. And I'm not saying that 100% everything goes well, but they have good reasons that we understand, and that's what we will be telling to our viewer in today's program as well as forthcoming programs, as to see what were the specific issues that we discussed and what their response was, and going forward what may it look like.
That's right. Michael, what they do is the consular officers are very interested in troubleshooting their own processes and their information flow and finding out where there might be pitfalls in the processes that they're putting into place. And they're obviously, which I found to be very interesting, is that they really are genuinely interested in improving the processes at the U.S. consulate offices abroad. So they asked us things like, do we find that we're getting responses to the communications that we're sending? And of course, sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we send communications on behalf of our clients which end up in a black hole, and there's not a whole lot that we can do about it except to continue to send those communications. So this gave us a unique opportunity to appear in front of the officer and hand them a pile of paper and say, look, we've been sending all of these communications. Why have you not responded? What's going on? And sometimes they would take those cases and they would respond to us, and sometimes, unfortunately, we have to follow up again and try to get answers. And that has to do with this thing called administrative processing. A lot of it is, a lot of the inquiries that we had were, what is administrative processing about? Can you give us guidance on administrative processing? And it actually went a step further, where what we suggested to them is a way to deal with their process flow, where when they say there's administrative processing, perhaps they can change their notifications to the people who are coming to apply to say why that administrative processing is taking place. Maybe it's a background check. Maybe it has to do with additional information that may be required. Maybe it has to do with some other database that they're checking. Maybe it's a security concern, national security concern.
That's one thing they will not say in writing. I mean, we did discuss about this, and I brought to their attention.
But we asked them.
Yeah,
We asked
brought
them.
to their attention that there have been in the past even some cables from the Department of State saying that when you deny under 221G, first of all, 221G is a denial, because this is very, very important when people apply for a visitor visa, a student visa, and there's a question as to have you been denied, and the person who did not get actually a denial letter, he got a 221G letter. Mm-hmm. It has been the position of the Department of State that 221G refusal, you can say, is denial. So when you apply for a visitor, student, any type of visa, answer to the question must be yes.
Yeah, ESTA is where that came up recently, and they
So
put out a memo.
David,
on
why
it.
don't we do this thing? We go, right now we are in New Delhi. Let's talk about New Delhi, and then each post will talk a little bit, and then the general issues. In New Delhi, basically, we had two meetings. One was with the American consular officer that we'll discuss, and we also had a meeting with the immigration office, an overseas USCIS office in New Delhi.
That's right.
And there were different issues there, different questions. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Time goes so fast.
It does. Oh
Time
my
goes so
gosh.
fast.
Yeah.
But
We had so much to say about the visa preference numbers.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in the next program, we'll continue further discussion and information that we'll provide to our viewers. What happened in New Delhi, what happened in Hyderabad, what happened in
Yeah,
Chennai.
maybe we can go
and then
consulate
Mumbai.
by consulate for
And
that.
also
Yeah.
the general
It's a great idea.
issues, how they can be resolved and all that.
Okay, good.
So, thank you very much, David, for coming
Thank you,
on the
Michael.
program.
Thanks.
And thank all of you for watching our program. Please keep watching us every Saturday and Sunday. Thank you very much and goodbye.